Good evening, family. I actually was not planning at all to go live tonight. If anything, I was going to go live tomorrow, but here we are. So hopefully this will not be a long one at all. Hope you guys had a good day today. And yeah, we'll be getting started here momentarily. Hey, Wanea and Willie in the house. Glad to see y'all. And everybody else that'll be joining. I'm not gonna wait too long for this one, because this one is just it will be up and people can catch it when they catch it. So we're gonna do it like a 1 minute countdown, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Actually, I'll do a 2 minute countdown. I'll just do that. All right. Yeah, we'll just do a 2 minute countdown, and then we're gonna jump right into it. What we're gonna talk about tonight. Okay. All right, good evening, family. Welcome to another broadcast here. Like I said, again, this was somewhat unplanned. I was going to talk about this topic, but I was going to actually try to talk about it tomorrow, maybe. I did a post earlier today. I have that on the community page, and that's actually what we're going to talk about. We're going to look into this because I was out. I just got back in, and just away from social media for a little bit. Got back home, and then man, just the wide amount of willing ignorance. It's like to the point right now for me, it's just getting a bit too much. It really is. Like I don't even know what to do. So only thing I do right now, I'll do a video and maybe somebody will listen. That's kind of how I feel right now. I'm at my ends. I'm at my ends, man. I'm at my ends when it comes to this kind of stuff, man. I'm at my ends. You know, people will tell you they love quoting that scripture. You know, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. But the same people that say this stuff don't even read themselves. And it's just really bad. It's anyway. So before we get started here, I do want to bring up this page here. This is our Samba Tree. One reason I'm bringing it up here because this is our final night of the Samba Tree summer sale, where you get 25% off everything in the store. 25%. After that, it's going to go away. So if you miss it, you don't miss it. Don't wait till tomorrow. All right. It's it. Midnight. We'll say midnight. Okay. Wherever you are, midnight. Okay. Today is July the 23rd. So at midnight, July 23rd, wherever you are, this is where it all ends. Okay. Tonight, 25% off everything in the store except bulk stuff, not the bulk stuff, because you're already getting a huge deal on that. Everything from all kinds of seasonings, oils, powders, all kinds of stuff. And we're always adding new stuff on there. And I'm excited over the next few months. We're going to be, introducing some new stuff as well, and looking at some other people out there, and and seeing what other things, wonderful things that we can add and for our people here on the store here. So again, remember, 25% off. That's it. After tonight, it goes back to the regular price. Again, the website is sambatree.com. The website is samba, S-A-M-B-A, tree.com. And as you can see, I'm just kind of paging through it. We have everything from jewelry. We have oils. We have dried fruit. We have turmeric, 50-50 pepper capsules, sea moss capsules with bladderwrack and burdock root. We got black seed. We got all kinds of stuff on here. Again, the website is sambatree.com. All right. So thank you again for all of those who shop there. Really appreciate that. But our number one goal is to make sure that our people are getting healthy. And then we want to use this platform as a way to educate our people on the alternatives that are out there for you. So even if you don't buy from us, that's quite all right. Our goal is we want to see, our people healed, and we want to see our people living a whole well life, and so that's really our goal. So, and we practice what we preach here. I'm in that gym. I've been hitting that gym, and the best part of the gym for me is leaving. Because I feel like there's such of a sense of accomplishment. Like, I did it. I committed to it and I did it. I accomplished it, and pressing through, and doing my things. I be on that Stairmaster. Right now, Stairmaster, I'm up to 30 minutes on there, and 30 minutes on 8. And it's so I gradually work my way on that. And that's Stairmaster, treadmill, doing weights, and I just be hitting it. And my wife was asking, like, have you noticed any changes or differences or whatever? But I do feel a sense of focus, a greater focus, and just doing that. And I'm not even getting on the scale. I ain't looking at the scale, because as soon as I look at the scale, it's just like, all of a sudden I get into this other mindset. And then I get discouraged and all that stuff. I'm like, no, let me do it because I enjoy doing it. So, man, I'll be on that treadmill dancing and not completely dancing, but man, I have my music on and I'm good. I'm in my zone, man. And on Stairmaster, I can only do but so much. I have to be completely focused on that. I gotta be completely focused on that joint. Woo! That thing it'll get you. But the results you do see those results after a while, though. That's why I be on it. So anyway, just a historical note. Did you know that in slavery they did have something similar to that? Except that it was stairs, but they were provided by the master. In other words, there were steps that the slaves had to be on, and as they were walking on it, it turned like some gears that were grinding grain. Look it up. I don't know what they actually called it, but it was like stairs. and the stairs would move, and then you had slaves that would just be on it constantly. And these stairs, as they were moving like these mills, which in turn were grinding grain up. So I think about that too. I'm like, man, at least I got a TV on mine. But anyway, so glad to have you guys here this evening. But tonight, I wanted to touch on this topic here. Like I said, tonight, this is kind of a desperation broadcast for me, because I just don't know what else. I just don't even know. I don't even know. I see these topics come up sometime. And so for me, I just say, let me dig in just a little bit. Let me just see what they're really saying here. And it only takes like a few minutes to dig, and then you find out the truth on it. But man, the lie is already done out to the races. Man, it's something. But anyway, so what am I talking about tonight? We're just going to take a look at this thing going on in Florida. Okay, so what the mainstream media has been reporting, if you have not been paying attention, is that the state of Florida is telling people that black folks benefited from slavery. Okay, that's what's being reported, that black people benefited from slavery. And so you got black folks all over the place. And the thing that really gets me is that many of these same black folks would tell you that the mainstream media is racist. However, when the mainstream media reports certain things, we immediately take them at their word, and just run with it, because we 100% trust them. On one hand, we will say they're racist. They underreport missing black women or missing black children. They don't care. They never report positive things about black people. So we'll write books on that, papers on that, blog posts on that, TikToks, Instagram videos. We'll do all kinds of stuff on that, saying how racist the mainstream media is. But as soon as the mainstream media will put something out, an article, we accept it as 100% the truth without even questioning it at all. And it's just, I just don't get it. I don't get it. So I'm saying this to set you up so that you understand, because we do have some people who have very short attention spans, and they do not like to listen, and they don't like to read. And so that's not you I'm talking to. So if you listen to me, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about some other folks. Okay. And you figure that out on your own. If it applies to you, it applies to you. But I ain't talking about you. Okay. But, it's just, anyway, so let me just get into it. So it just really, I'm just really baffled. It's just really baffling to me. On one hand, you don't trust them, they're racist, but on the other hand, you just run with them. I don't agree. First of all, number one, let's talk about the state of Florida. That's just a couple of things. Number one, I used to live in the state of Florida. Okay. I lived in, what was it? What's the, Palm Beach County, West Palm Beach County. That's where we live. And yes, we had our experiences, if you will, with the other man, particularly in the school. Both of my children went to a high school in that county. And there was a case where my son was going into the school. It was like a little bit early. And one of his teachers saw him, and I believe this was a while back, and basically was saying that he was trespassing, and and called like security on him or something like that. And it was something very crazy like that. And so, of course he told me, and I was on the phone that day, and it very forcefully, but I was very polite, if you will. But I wanted to be clear that this ain't going to go by another day until we resolve this. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't never have to yell. You know what I mean? You do not have to yell. In most cases, you don't have to yell. You don't have to be kicking over chairs and screaming and hollering. I don't do that, because I do understand that, particularly as a black man, when you come into a situation like that, you already are behind the eight ball, and it's just a matter of time before the cops come. So I tend not to yell. You know what I mean? Yelling is usually the very, very, very last resort for me. So in this case, I didn't have to do that. But they got the point very quickly, and I was able to have a sit down immediately with the principal, and I was able to tell them, hey, listen, this is very bad. I walked them through the entire situation and all of that. She did an immediate investigation, found out, okay, what happened, and apologized just over and over again, and and said we're going to rectify this quickly and all of that. Now, this is a predominantly white school, so we had our encounter with something, things like that, and it was like some other stuff that came across. So I'm pretty familiar with Florida. Okay, so everything I'm saying to you in this broadcast, I'm not saying this in defense of the culture of Florida. I'm very aware of that. That's number one. Number two, I am not a Republican. So anything that I say here is not in defense of Republicans or conservatives. I don't care about either side, because as far as I'm concerned, the government system in this country, period, is a racist based system. So I don't have any faith in it at all. And I don't look to the government for anything, especially when it comes to educating our people. That is not even the last thing that I would expect or put any demands for them to do that. So me discussing this isn't me saying, hey, let's 3 cheers for Florida for teaching our Black history or whatever. No, because I don't trust them at all. I think any conversation when it comes to teaching Black history or African American history, it should and it must begin in the house. I do not believe that I think this is a very backwards approach, in my personal opinion, expecting the government to teach Black history or anybody else's history. Well, I would say more so our history, because this government has a long history of getting our story wrong over and over again. So I do not look at Florida, Pennsylvania, California, Oklahoma, name the state. I don't look at any of these states as, they're going to teach Black history and they're going to teach it right and we need them to teach it. And no, I think the conversation needs to begin at home. So I'm only talking about this because it's in the news. But just so you understand my perspective in this, I do not look to the government when it comes to that, because I don't trust them when it comes to our history, not even in the least. So just so that we're very clear on that, okay? Because like I said, I get some people that will jump in and automatically start saying, yeah, DeSantis, he's just racist though, and all this stuff. I don't care about DeSantis, okay? I don't care about him at all. He's not on my personal radar at all, except for this particular story that we're talking about, okay? So I got to lay all of that out. I got to lay all of that out so people are very clear on how, as we dive into this, okay? Okay, so anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so like I said, mainstream media is reporting that the state of Florida is basically going to tell, in their curriculum, are going to basically be telling Black folks that, and other, students, period, that there were benefits to slavery. First and foremost, that is not the truth at all. It is 100% false in what they're saying. And once you dive into, which we're going to do, there's a lot of people talking about this online right now, but there's very few that are actually looking at the document. And that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go through it. We're going to do a jaunt through it. Okay. I mean, it's a lengthy document, but we're just going to kind of hit the main points. Okay. So that you can see, because again, it's about context, full context. Okay. All right. Like I said, remember who you're listening to. I don't trust these people at all. Okay. I do not. Okay. But I am going to look at the facts. And then from there, we're going to make our, and it's up to you, rather, if you're going to whatever you think about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? But whatever you or I think about it, it does not change the facts. I was on Twitter, and someone even went as far as making a T-shirt. They got a T-shirt and they're selling it. There was no benefit to to slavery. They're making T-shirts off of this. I'm like, Did you even read the thing? That's not what they're saying. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I'll just pull this up, and I promise you, we really don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this. We don't. But I want to put something out here on the social media space so that hopefully someone will take the time and actually look at the thing so that they're talking from a place of knowledge and not from emotion. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so let's go here. So what we're going to do here. So it says Florida State Academic Standards, Social Studies 2023. Okay, so we'll just kind of go through this and all, in the beginning here. Okay. All right, so they go through the whole thing here, African-American history, blah, blah, blah. They mention all of this stuff here, okay? All righty. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to do a search. All right, we're going to do a search here. We're going to do a search for the word slavery, all right? And we're going to hit all the points where they're talking about slavery. If I can spell it right. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we'll start here, and we're going to, and then we're just going to do a jaunt through it, okay? But I would highly encourage you. It's online. It's free. You can download it. You can look at it yourself, okay? For you to look at it yourself so that you're looking at it from a place of knowledge, okay? All right, so we're just going to jump through some of the things. We don't have to read the whole thing, but we're going to read enough so that you can get the full context. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Examine the life of African Americans in the colonial era. We're going to jump down here. It says clarification 1. Instruction includes what life it was like for the earliest slaves and the emancipated in North America. Let's skip down here. Examine the Underground Railroad and how former slaves partnered with other free peoples and groups in assisting those escaping from slavery. All right, so just skip on down here. All right, let's go down here. All right, so let's skip down here. Explain the causes, course, and consequence of the Civil War, sectionalism, slavery, states' rights, balance, and power of the Senate. Let's see. Analyze the role of slavery in the development of sectional conflict. Let's see here. Let's continue here. Okay. Here's another section here. Examine the condition of slavery as it existed in Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Europe prior to 1619. Instruction includes how trading in slaves developed in African lands, in Benin and Dahomey. So what they're looking at is, as it just states here, they're not going to put in this curriculum, they're not going to just emphasize slavery as it was practiced here in the States or in the colonies at that time, but also in places like Benin and Dahomey. Yeah, you remember when the movie came out, The Woman King, people lost their mind because nobody wanted to talk about the fact that Dahomey was in fact engaging in this sale of other Africans. They didn't want to talk about that. I was going toe to toe with even some folks out here who are on the board of the young lady. She's on the board for reparations. And we were going back and forth there for a moment, but she still was not dealing with the fact. She was trying to minimize the fact that they were and they did engage in slave trade. They did. I mean, you can't get around that. She was one of these main cheerleaders out here for that movie, The Woman King. If you saw it, you saw it. Like I told people all the time, you grown, you go see what you want. I personally was not going to see it because, again, it's, I see it no different than, if I was a Jewish person going to see a movie about, how the Nazis won a war or something, a great battle or something like that. I don't want to see that. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to see that. Then people try to bring in, well, you got people, I got the Dahomean blood, in me as well. So those people are your people. Well, to a degree, that may be the case. But I also got white people in my bloodline, too, just like many of y'all. It don't necessarily mean I'm claiming them. You understand what I'm saying? Or they're my people, too. So that argument has to apply all around if you're going to do that. So it's okay to have a disagreement. But I didn't draw, I wasn't hating people over this stuff. It's just facts are facts on that. So anyway, so they're going to look at this according to this, what they have in their stated curriculum. All right. Let's see. Clarification 2. Instructions include the practice of barbary, pirates, and kidnapping Europeans and selling them into slavery in Muslim countries. And they go through that, right? Clarification 3. Instruction includes how slavery was utilized in Asian cultures. So they're looking at slavery amongst these other groups as well. They're even going to get into the indigenous people and how they were enslaved as well. Okay, so let's continue here. All right. For those who are just joining us, we're taking an actual look at the Florida curriculum. All right. We're not just going by headlines. We're looking at the curriculum ourselves. OK. All right. So let's jump down here. All right. So analyze the development of labor systems using indentured servitude contracts with English settlers and Africans in early Jamestown, Virginia. All of this is factual. This is true. It started off as that, but then it went into something else, right? Instruction includes the impact of the increased demand for land in the colonies and the effects of the cost of labor resulting from the shift of indentured servitude to slavery. Exactly right. Is that incorrect? No, it's not. That's correct. That did happen. Clarification 4. Instruction includes the shift in attitude towards Africans as colonial America transitioned from indentured servitude to race-based hereditary slavery. And then they get into that, okay? All right, let's move on. Benchmarks, clarifications. What section is this? This is analyze the reciprocal roles of the triangular trade routes between Africa and Western Hemisphere, Africa and Europe and the Western Hemisphere. All right, clarification 1. Instruction includes the triangular trade and how the three-tiered system encouraged the use of slavery. All right, let's move on. Examine the development of slavery and describe the conditions for Africans during the passage to America. And they're still talking about the triangular trade and all of that, right? They're just going to get into that. Let's see here. This section here is compare the living conditions of slaves in British North American colonies, the Caribbean, Central America, South America, including infant mortality rates. Now, I think that's a great study as far as I'm concerned, because that's something that's not really talked about too often, is the high rate of infant mortality rates that was taking place as well during that time. I think that needs to be discussed, So anyway, let's move on. It goes down here. It says instruction includes the harsh conditions and their consequences on British American plantations, undernourishment, climate conditions, infant and child mortality rates of the enslaved versus the free. Clarification 2, instruction includes the harsh conditions in the Caribbean plantations, i.e. poor nutrition, rigorous labor, disease. Clarification 3, instruction includes how slavery was sustained in the Caribbean, Dutch Guyana, and Brazil, despite overwhelming death rates. Now, based off of that, we're not even finished yet. We're just getting started. Based off of that, are you getting a feeling that they're going to teach that there's benefits to slavery? I'm not getting that vibe based off of what I'm reading so far. But no, we're going to continue to go through this, okay? Because we want a holistic picture on this. All right, let's move on. Evaluate efforts by groups to limit the expansion of race-based slavery in colonial America. All right, and then they go on, examine different events which Africans resisted slavery. Instruction includes the impact of revolts of the enslaved, and then they go on and name these different slave uprisings. How is that bad? Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Remember, if you're just coming in, please rewind to earlier in what I said here. I am not pro DeSantis. I am not pro conservative or Republican. We're just reading the document that everybody's running their mouth about, but people aren't actually reading themselves, okay? And I've also said I personally do not trust the government with our history. I prefer them not teach it. I prefer we teach it. But we're just looking at this just because it's in the news. That's all we're doing, okay? Describe the contributions of Africans to society, science, poetry, politics, oratory, literature, music, dance, Christianity, and exploration in the United States from 1776 to 1865. And then they name all these different ones here that contributed. Okay. Let's see this section here. Explain how slave codes were strengthened in response to African resistance to slavery. Benchmark clarifications. They say instruction includes early laws that impacted slavery and resistance. And then they go through the Stono Rebellion. We just talked about that. The Louisiana's Code Noir, however you say it. South Carolina slave codes, Igbo landing, mass suicide. They're going through all of this stuff. Clarification 2, instruction includes foreign and domestic influences on the institution of slavery, i.e. the Haitian Revolution, the preliminary declaration from the Constitution of Haiti, German Coast Uprising, Louisiana Revolt. I think all of those topics are great topics to discuss because on one hand, you talk about, we touched on that with the Stono Rebellion and the fallout that took place as a result of that, even with Nat Turner. These were major slave uprisings that took place, and people realized, wait a minute, we gotta make some changes quick, fast, in a hurry. One of the changes that came out of these uprisings, at least in the colonies here and what we call today the United States, is that they were very harsh. They had very strict laws against Africans with drums. They pretty much eliminated here, but like down in Brazil and in the Caribbean, they allowed it, but not up here. No, they squashed that real quick because they saw the power that these drums were bringing in organizing our people. All right, so they're going to talk about all of that. That's what they're going to talk. They're going to get into detail. Okay, let me move on. Examine political actions of the Continental Congress regarding the practice of slavery. Let's move on. Instruction includes the examples of how the members of the Continental Congress made attempts to end or limit slavery. Example, the first draft of the Declaration of Independence that blamed King George III for sustaining the slave trade in the colonies. The call for Continental Congress for the end of the involvement of the international slave trade, the Continental Provision allowing for Congress action in 1808. All right, let's move on. Benchmark. Okay, examine how the federal and state laws shaped the lives and rights for enslaved and free Africans in the 18th and 19th centuries. Go on. It says instruction includes how different states passed laws that gradually led to the abolition of slavery in northern states. And then they go through all of that. Okay, let's continue. All right. Let's see. Next section. Analyze the provisions under the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution regarding slavery. And then they have a whole section on that. Instruction includes how slavery increased through the natural reproduction and the smuggling of human contraband in spite of the desire of the Continental Congress to end the importation of slaves. Clarification 2. Instruction includes how the Northwest Ordinance of 1785 provided a mechanism for selling and settling the land and laid the foundations for land policy until the passage of the Homestead Act of 1862. Let's see. Clarification 3. Instruction includes the political issues regarding slavery that were addressed in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Then they're going to get into here, clarification 4. I'll just read that. Instruction includes the 3/5 compromise as an agreement between delegates from the northern and southern states in the Continental Congress, 1783, and taken up anew at the United States Constitutional Convention. And then they go through. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Like I said, I'm just doing this just for the record. That's all I'm doing this for. Okay. Let's see. Analyze the provisions under the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution regarding slavery. Clarification 1. Instruction includes how slavery increased through the okay, I already read that. Let me move on. Let's continue here. Hold on for a second. Analyze the contributions of founding principles of liberty, justice, and equality in the quest to end slavery. Okay, and then they're going through abolition period and all of that. Let's go here. Instruction includes the abolitionists and anti-slavery organizations, Pennsylvania Abolition Society, New York Manumission Society, Free African Society, American Maryland Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery and the Relief of Free Negroes and Other Unlawfully Held in Bondage, Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery. So they're really taking a very holistic, based on what I'm seeing so far on the whole thing. Again, like I wrote earlier, we can quibble on some things here, but everything I'm seeing here, I'm not opposed to teaching at all. We should be teaching this in our own homes, but this is what they're doing. So anyway, let's continue. Instruction includes the efforts of the American Colonization Society towards the founding of Liberia and its relationship to the struggle to end slavery in the United States. Again, these are all great topics. Describe the impact of the Society of Friends on the abolition of slavery. Let's move on. Instruction includes how the Underground Railroad and the abolitionist movement assisted each other towards the ending of slavery. I'm just going fast now. Instruction includes debates over the westward expansion of slavery, Louisiana Purchase, Missouri Compromise, Wilmot Proviso Compromise of 1850, Kansas Nebraska Act. Compare the actions of Nat Turner, John Brown, and Frederick Douglass and the direct responses to their efforts to end slavery. Skipping. I'm just reading all the references to slavery here. Recognize the practice of slavery and other forms of forced labor experienced during the 13th through the 17th centuries in East Africa, West Africa, Europe, Southwest Asia, and the Americas. Almost finished here. Examine the Underground Railroad and how former slaves partnered with other free people and groups in assisting those escaping slavery. Instruction includes how slavery was utilized in Asian. Okay, so it's kind of repetitive here. All right, let's move on here. Describe the history and evolution of slave codes. So they're going to do a drill down on the slave codes here. Instruction includes judicial and legislative actions concerning slavery. Another section here is explain early congressional actions regarding the institution of slavery. Then they name all of that here. Okay, why am I reading all this? It seems like I'm repeating here. Evaluate various abolitionist movements that continuously push to end slavery. All right, let's see. I'm just because I'm like, maybe it's going back again. I'm not sure. Examine the condition of slavery as it. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, I'm looping here. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So that's pretty much what you're getting when it comes to slavery. Okay. All right. So we're going to look for that word benefit with that section that they're talking about benefit. Benefit. All right. Spell right again. All right, here we go. Okay, this is the section right here that you're looking at that everybody, the non-reading demographic amongst our people, the massa mainstream media. I should make that into an acronym. MMSM. Massa mainstream media. I should make that into. So this right here is the section that people are just jumping in and all over in their emotions about. Okay. So now we have given you the full context of what this curriculum is about. Again, if you're just joining us, please go back to the beginning of this broadcast so that you can get where I'm coming from, the perspective I'm coming from on this. One more time, because, I got to keep saying this over and over again. I am not pro DeSantis. I am not pro Republican. I am not a conservative. I do not care about the United States governmental system because it's, as far as I'm concerned, it is equally racist. So if I believe that, I would be a fool to expect them to get our history right. So I don't look to them for our history. I say this needs to end, period. And it needs to be on us as a people to teach our own people our history, period. I think it's a fool's expectation to think that the person that the system that enslaved you is somehow going to teach you factual and actual history. I just don't understand why people expect a different result. You understand what I'm saying? I don't expect that. So I also expect them to leave things out. Just like in this one, if I was to go through this with a fine tooth comb, of course, there'll be many other topics I personally would include, but I don't give a, you know what, about this. I don't, because they're the government. It's the United States. So they're going to leave things out. Whatever is left out, that's up to me to put that in for my children and for my people. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I got to take these pauses here before, as we move on, because you'll get some people that hear exactly what they want to hear and then jump all into their emotions. All right. So let's look at this section here where people are losing their ever living mind over this. All right. So this is what the section says. Examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves. And they say, example, agricultural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, transportation. Everything that's mentioned here. See, what people got to understand is when Africans were brought over here as slaves, we didn't come over here as dummies. You had skilled laborers that were coming over here. These people that came over, you had people who were engineers, had an engineering background. I mean, they may not have gone to Harvard or Yale, but they understood the basics of engineering. I was sharing with the people yesterday, we're going to get into early African mathematics. I'm probably not going to share it here. We're going to do that over on mybondtube.com. And guess what? I'm not going to even charge you. Okay. We're going to get into early African mathematics. I'm talking about mathematics that predated Egypt. This is the kind of stuff that's left out of all of these curriculums. You even got Hebrews that won't talk about this because they don't have nothing to do with it. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about mathematics and how this is going back thousands and thousands of years, and they still have actual record of it, and how that mathematics relates to cosmology. Okay. So I'm mentioning all that to say your people came over with a lot of knowledge and heavy skill sets. So they just weren't sitting around like, oh Lord Jesus, all I know is I could play a banjo and I could cook and I can clean and all that. That's what they want you to think. But you got to understand, these people who were stealing our people from Africa, these were very smart businessmen. I'm not saying that as a positive. I hope you follow me. If you're trying to build a country, you're not going to go after the dumbest people on the planet. You're going to go after the people who are the smartest. But you got to figure out a way to trick them. And if you can't trick them, then you got to do it by force to acquire them so that they can build your country. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when our people came over here, they were not dummies. So when it comes to, say, ironwork, we can have a whole discussion. We talked about this. When you go into a lot of these plantation homes and you see a lot of the ironwork that's done over there, guess who did that? Your people. And it traces all the way back to Africa. When it comes to the understanding of how herbs and how herbs can be used for not just cooking, but for medicine. We were not only good at it, we were very good at it, to the point, because see, as smart as in the area of business these slave masters were, they were very dumb and stupid when it came over here, because they had no plan on, okay, if we get sick, how we gonna get well? Because even a lot of the doctors didn't know. The only thing the doctors knew was bloodletting. They said, okay, if someone is sick, well, what you gonna do? You're gonna bloodlet them, which means basically you just cut them and allow them to bleed, or you get some leeches, and you put leeches on them. You put them in like in a bathtub, and then you fill it up with, you throw a bunch of leeches in there, and it says, yeah, it's going to suck all the bad blood out, and then once you suck all the bad blood out, then people will get well. Well, that was a thought. That was stupid. But the Africans that they brought over as slaves were sitting up there like, y'all crazy. No, that's not how you do it. Let me go out here and learn the herbs that are in this area, in this new land, because again, we're not in Africa. But I have the mindset to understand how plants communicate with one another and what benefits they have. So let me go out there. There's many accounts. There are books on this, y'all. There are books that describe this, books that are written by black folks. They talk about this. How your people went out there and they figured it out. And so even though they were beating the hell out of our people, they still were relying on them in many cases to get them well. And you had some smart ones, and these are the ones I claim. They say, yeah, here's some medicine. I'm put a little extra in there. You know what I'm saying? And they ain't wake up again, so, I'll be doing that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's how you going to beat somebody, and say, but at the same time, I'm sick. You better get out there and find me some medicine. But that's what they were doing. So anyway, so that's that. In the area of pottery, we talked about that. Dave the Potter in North Carolina, he's one, but he represented an entire industry of Africans that were brought over as slaves in the area of pottery. Pottery was a huge thing. It may not be a huge thing in your house now because you get your pans and pots and pans now from Walmart. But pottery was something that was a necessity in many homes. And so who did they turn to? The people who were good at it, right? Pottery. When it came to rice farms, of course, many of y'all know that. So they knew exactly where to go on the continent of Africa for people who were skilled at growing rice, right? Now, was there rice already here? Yes, there was wild rice that was already here, but the texture of the rice, the wild rice that was here, was too grainy. It was too hard. And so, the natives that were already here, that was their thing. They enjoyed it. But the Europeans and then the Africans that came over, they was like, well, we're not used to that. So they said, okay, well, the rice, we're going to start growing rice here. So they went in the Carolinas, they went in Georgia, they went all down there, and even down in Louisiana, all down there, they were growing rice. Got rice paddies all over the place. So they had to rely on the people who had those skill sets, okay? So they came over with all of that stuff. All right, so these weren't dummies that came over here. And we can go down a list of all kinds of things that our people brought over. So this is the thing I want to stress to you. These were not dummies. They were not dummies that came over, okay? Now, what had to happen, because now we're going to put this in its context on top of what we just read, all right? So let's read it again. So let's go in here. So say, examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves. Example, agricultural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, transportation, that. Okay. All right. Clarification. Instruction includes how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Now, you got dusty, non-reading black folks that won't take the time to read what we just read. The context. They are not saying here that the benefit, they're building everything they're saying, they're building it off of this. What they're saying, what is being implied here is that the Africans that were brought over as slaves had to take the skill sets they already had and had to fit it or to kind of make adjustments so that they can adjust to the new economy in the world that they were in. Case in point, black folks, Africans that over in Africa, yes, they were wearing clothes. We weren't walking around butt naked, okay? I don't care what the cartoons and all that says. We were wearing clothes. We knew how to sew, right? But the sewing a lot of times was done by way of hand, right? We use different tools. Well, if you don't have the tools that you were used to in Africa, what do you have to do? Now you got to adjust to the tools that are here, right? So there was a whole cottage industry of black women who had tailoring businesses where they were tailoring dresses, they were tailoring suits. There's books on this stuff. It was and so what did they use for that? Sewing machines. They didn't have the sewing machines that, that were developed here, that were brought over from Europe, they didn't have those sewing machines in Africa. We knew how to sew, but we weren't sewing with our stuff because they took our stuff away from us, right? So they had to adjust to the new tools that was available to them. So that was the benefit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not saying that slavery was a benefit. They turned a disadvantage and made it into a benefit. That's what they're saying. That's what is being implied. As we went through this whole thing, they're covering all the horrors of slavery. They're covering all of it. There's not one piece in this entire document that I went through is saying that slavery was a good thing or it was a positive thing and thank God for slavery. They're not saying that. There's nothing in here that's saying that. What's fueling this? What's really fueling this is the fact that DeSantis is a threat to Democrats who want to make sure that Florida, they want to keep Florida a blue state. They want to make Florida into a blue state. So what they're going to do, they're going to jump on everything possible. And they're going to even to the point of exaggerating and outright lying. And the strategy is always the same. Put out lies to black folks, appeal to their emotions, and we will run to it. We will run with it without even checking anything. Again, I don't care who you vote for. I don't give a rip about these people. Do you understand what I'm saying? Republicans, Democrats, I don't, not at all. But what I do care about and what is really worrisome and bothersome to me is when our people fall for this nonsense all the time and we just irrationally just say things and blurt things out here without even taking the time to read anything. Because it's right here. I mean, like I said, it's online. You can just look it up yourself. It's literally all out here. They're telling you what's in it. So anyway, like I said, I really was not wanting to make this broadcast long at all, but I do want to mention something else here. And this is what I posted on our community page here. Let me just read this part to you, okay? I'll just start here. I'll just read it begin. I said, mainstream media continues to receive huge returns from non-reading black folks who still rely on them for journalistic accuracy when it comes to any reporting that involves black folks. Let's continue. It says, mainstream media will package stories in such a way to get readers to focus only on their agenda, the actual story. For example, the reporting on CRT, critical race theory, tells us that states like Florida are against it simply because it teaches black history. What is left out are two main points. A, CRT bundles a very clear LGBT agenda within its curriculum in an effort to equate personal sexual preference to the color of one's skin. We did a video where we went through the details of that. Okay, so that's why we do not buy into that. When it comes to critical race theory, I do not buy into that because I see the trick bag that it really is. And what they did was that they added this other stuff in it and trying to make it seem as, trying to blend all in, the LGBT stuff in there as well. And that's what they said. No, we don't want that part. If you're going to teach black history, teach on. That's not to say that you didn't have, gay and lesbian black folks in those days and all that. Yes, you did. But the primary reason why our people were being treated the way they were being treated, it wasn't because they were gay or lesbian. They were being treated poorly because they were black. And what these people are about is that you're trying to blend this other stuff in and trying to equate your blackness to what someone chooses to be one day. And then they had the freedom to choose not to be that way. I wake up back black. I work and do my thing every day black. I go to bed black. I wake up the next day black. I don't have a choice not to be black. But when it comes to sexual preference, that is a choice that people have. They can just choose one day to be. There's a whole, just do a search here on social media. There are many people right now that are deciding now to detransition. I can't detransition to something else. I'm always black. You understand what I'm saying? Thank you, Yellow Rose Stovall. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I'm from Louisiana. I'll post that. He says, I'm from Louisiana, born and raised in New Orleans. My mother was a seamstress. More slaves went through New Orleans than any other city in the United States. Absolutely. Absolutely. The seamstress, like I was saying earlier, that was a huge thing. Huge. Black women were excellent at that. I mean, they were. If you've seen the movie The Color Purple, they touch on that a little bit, just a little bit. But black women were huge at that, and they were extremely successful at that. But that was a skill set that black folks already had, and they knew how to sew, but they had to learn how to use the machines. But honey, once they learned the machines, it was a done deal. It was like, this shows what we needed. We know the rest. That's what they're talking about. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. Okay, so critical race theory tells us that states like Florida are against against it simply because it teaches black history. What is left out are two main points. A, CRT bundles a very clear LGBT agenda within its curriculum in an effort to equate personal sexual preference to the color of one's skin. B, critical race theory is the brainchild of the Frankfurt School of Columbia University. In short, this was a think tank of Jewish social engineers who wanted to use Marxism as a way to tear down existing societal norms that conflicted with Marxist ideologies. And that's, and Karl Marx, who's the founder of Marxism, he was Jewish. Okay, so let me finish reading this. In the early days, they developed a curriculum called critical theory. Okay, so this is Frankfurt School. They developed this. It was a theory. They referred to it as critical theory. This serves as the basis of today's critical race theory. So critical race theory, even though it may have a black face running with it today, that's the cover of it, she didn't just come up with that by herself. That was the brainchild of the founders of the critical theory that was developed by the Frankfurt School. All right. And I said, I'll have some videos that I'll upload over on BondTube, that will really break down and show you the history of that. But it's not just the Frankfurt School. It's also the Tavistock Institute. That's a whole nother institution. That's a social engineering think tank. And a lot of this stuff that you see, like on social media, for example, a lot of stuff you see on media, all these old TikTok trends and all that other stuff. A lot of this stuff can be traced to these social engineering think tanks. You actually have people who sit down and say, how can we make people dumber? This is when you start getting into the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School at Columbia University, their goal, the individuals, when you start reading about the individuals behind this that founded this whole thing, their whole thing, first of all, they were ran out of different countries, especially Germany. See, there's certain folks that don't want me to go there. When you start getting into Berlin and what was going on in Berlin. See, I don't want to give you too much because, like I said, I don't want it to be too heavy here. But there were countries throughout Europe that was running people like this out of their country because they saw what they were trying to do. These individuals who were the founders of the Frankfurt School, they were promoting things like sexual promiscuity and all this other stuff. They were also promoting, getting with the youth culture and trying to get them to challenge their parents more, this kind of stuff. And then you had countries like Hungary and some of these other countries. They saw what these jokers were doing. They said, nah, you better get up out of here with that. And so, then you had the war that happened and all that. So they got ran out. So where did they go next? What was the next place they went to? They came to the United States because the United States was a wide open place, right? And so they immediately went to the Ivy League schools. Where the Ivy League schools at that time, they weren't really, in their certain, in their how you say? Departments that deal with psychology and all of that, they weren't really doing as well, right? So they needed a kickstart. So in comes these founders of what we call today the Frankfurt School. They came in and they used the Ivy League school and the prestige that comes with it as a jump, if you will, and they started infiltrating all these different movements that was happening throughout the United States, especially the civil rights movement that was going on. That's why when you look at the civil rights movement, a lot of times you'll see people like Martin Luther King and some of these other people that was marching side by side with communists and Marxists. And so you got folks even in South Africa. You got a Marxist movement even in South Africa. People look at that like, oh, that's okay because it's for the people. Look at the people who came up with the whole movement. They don't care about you and they don't love you. They will get behind anything that they can use that will destabilize the country in of itself. And that's what their goal was here in the United States. You will find that the Frankfurt School, and there's other schools similar to that, think tanks like that, they were behind the whole movement with, they were getting with Bernays, they were getting with some of these other great thinkers and all of that. Bernays, he was in the marketing thing, but they were getting with a lot of these great thinkers and stuff. And then they were kind of the hidden hands, if you will, behind the whole hippie movement, which brought in like drugs and all that other stuff as well. The free love movement, that was their brainchild as well. The whole free love movement that, that everything can be solved by sex. That was their whole brainchild. They were bringing all that in there. And so they also said, wait a minute, you got these black folks over here too. Now they're fighting for something. We can use that. So they started jumping on our plight. And so black folks who just, again, we can't, unfortunately, some of our people, we feel like we're not legitimate unless we get some white folks on our team. But these white folks jumped on there. These Marxists, they got in there and they started kind of blending, getting in the mix, and they started feeding us their lines and all that other stuff, even though a lot of stuff they were saying was correct as far as this system is evil and wicked and racist and all that stuff. Yeah, they were saying all that and it was all true. They were absolutely right what they were saying. But see, our people you gotta start understanding, just because they may be saying what you're saying, they don't like you. They don't like you at all. They don't. They're not for you. They never have been for you. So that's why I say when I look at, when I talk about politics sometimes, I'm never a fan of any of these politicians at all, because they have a track record of never following through on anything. It's that's simple math for me. You don't follow through. You don't have the fruits to produce. There ain't nothing to talk about. But they use our emotions. They study. You got to understand. They understand what triggers our trigger points. This is a whole science. Black folks are a science to them. People are a science to these people. See, there's a whole nother thing we can talk. There are conversations I would love to have in getting into this stuff. I've spent a great deal of time looking at this, and I'm certainly not the only one. There are many people who talk about these things. But there's a whole science out here of people, all their whole existence is studying what triggers black folks, what triggers the different groups. How can we keep black folks destabilized? It ain't just a simple post on social media. There's a lot of things behind that's been years in the making. We're on their schedule. So right now we're on the part of their schedule where it's the gender war time. So now all of a sudden it's gender war. You got black men against black women and vice versa. This is all their schedule, and people just follow along with it. But once you start educating yourself on these other things, you begin to understand, okay, how these people are really moving and operating, and the different ops and stuff that they have out here in place to keep you distracted from this stuff. See, I don't care about the man behind the curtain. I want to know the man who's behind the man in the behind the curtain. I want to know that. You know what I'm saying? I want to know that kind of stuff. The man behind the curtain, he's just following the notes that are being handed to him by the person that's behind him. You understand what I'm saying? And usually the person that's behind him ain't nowhere to be found. But there's enough out here where if you take the time and look, you can find their stuff. It's all out here. So anyway, just to kind of bring this to a close, like I said, I did not want this to be a long broadcast, but it's just a plea that I have to my people. Listen, when these things come up, when these different topics come up, before you react, before you jump and you ready to say something on it, always, always, always take the time, just like we did tonight, and dig in and find the facts for yourself. Because 9.9999999 times out of 10, the mainstream media, anything that deals with black folks, anything that's about black folks on any topic, they are going to always leave some facts out. So again, so I can reiterate one more time, the purpose of this is not, I am not on anybody's payroll. Okay. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I'm not pro DeSantis. I don't care about any of these people. The U.S. government, one more time, is racist, period. There's no way around that. There is absolutely no way around that. So because that's established, as far as I'm concerned, I do not look for them to feed my children. I don't look for them to protect me. I don't depend on them to feed me. I don't depend on them to give me my history, because in every area they have failed. Now, I'm just going to do the best I can and play by the rules the best I can. But at the same time, I know things can be altered and changed at a moment's notice, because, again, we're in their playground. It's just what it is. And so, if you got good sense about you, you know how to ask questions. I think we've been through enough. Our ancestors have given us, have passed on to us a lot of smarts on how to navigate, even when things aren't, when they do things that aren't correct, when they do things that are shady and all that. There's enough in us where we can kind of navigate through those things and still come out, in a much better situation, than someone who don't even try. You know what I'm saying? So that's really my encouragement to you. This is why, again, I encourage you, just take the time and educate yourself on these things. Like I said, we have a library. This is how much I'm adamantly, I'm a full cheerleader when it comes to getting our people to read. We have a free library. Yes. Over 100 books. You go to mybondtube.com, do a search for the word gift, GIFT. A video will come up, follow the instructions, and you have access. It's that easy. Okay. Those are just some of the books. I have that's just a slice of my library. I got a lot of books. I don't sit down and read all day. A lot of these books I just use them for reference. If I come across a certain topic, then I'll say, oh, you know what? I got a book on that. Let me read it. And then I'll find out more, and what I don't know, I go and ask somebody else, or I get another book. So family, let's not fall into this whole trap of ignorance. It's too late for that right now. 400 years, family, come on. We got to do better than that. You understand what I'm saying? And for numbers of you out there, we do have black folks out here who do read, who do investigate, and my hats are off to you on that. So continue to do your work on that. But for those of you who just giving yourself over to laziness, I'm encouraging you. I'm pleading with you. Please don't allow your emotions to lead you in making decisions, because the times that we're in right now, family, you're going to need to take the time to read the fine print and ask questions, because some of this stuff, your life will be at stake if you do not investigate. Case in point, that just happened a few years ago. We did many videos, even at the expense of them striking this account repeatedly, but we kept on doing it anyway. And going through, we went through medical reports, and we had people who are in the medical field on and ask them questions directly and all this stuff so that we can get all the information we can so that we can make our decision based on as many facts as possible and not just something that we saw in passing in the comment section. We want to ask those who are in the know and we want to see their research. So that's my encouragement to you, family. Don't even rely on anything I say. Okay. You can just blank out everything I just actually said to you in this broadcast. All I ask for you to do is, if you're going to have an opinion on a topic like this, what we're talking about, just just go to the Florida curriculum and read it yourself and then go from there. Okay. And then whatever you, at that point, if you just, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying the whole thing, people still do that and still feel like they got to say something about DeSantis and all that. I'm like, don't let him distract you. Stick to the facts, stay on the facts. You don't care about all that other stuff. Just stay on the facts and build on that. As simple as that. Okay. So that's all I have for you, family, on this broadcast. I did not want, like I said, this was not going to be a long one at all. But I just, you see stuff and it's like, I get to a certain point. I'm like, man, I just don't know what to do. And that's where I am right now. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. When you see seemingly, it just seems like so many of your people that you really love that will give themselves over to willing ignorance to this level. And I'm just like, man, y'all, come on. We got to do better. And so that's what I would ask for you to do. Okay. All right. So that's it, family. Thank you so much for joining us this wonderful evening. And you guys take care and enjoy the rest of your week. You guys take care. We'll be talking again soon. All right. Love you.